started shooting, man, like all of the cops were getting shot. Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter!
This is not just a black issue. It's not just a Hispanic issue. This is an American issue.
Hello and welcome to the special edition of the Newsmakers with me, Imran Garta. 5 police officers shot dead, another 7 injured at a rally against police violence. It was the deadliest day for U.S. law enforcement since 9/11. At least 2 well-armed and apparently well-trained shooters sent people scattering in downtown Dallas and appeared to pick out police officers as their targets. It happened days after 2 black men were shot dead by police. Their last moments were captured and shared on social media. There is considerable anger in the U.S. at those killings. Today on the Newsmakers, we're asking what's led to this latest wave of violence and how can it be contained?
It was a peaceful gathering that took a sinister and unexpected turn. A march in Dallas to protest against the police treatment of black communities across America. Gunfire suddenly rang out.
They're shooting right now.
Panic ensued. Police officers were targeted and shot.
We don't know where it's coming from, but it was every cop. I didn't see anybody else get shot. It was just the cops.
But this is not the first time that police have been in the line of fire. 2 years ago, a gunman, Ishmael Abdullah Brinsley, shot and killed 2 policemen in New York before later killing himself. Authorities say it was a revenge attack. While in Ferguson, Missouri, a city that had been troubled by months of racial strife, 2 officers were shot and injured last year. While many make it plain they distrust some police forces across the USA, could we be seeing the start of a disturbing trend of revenge attacks on security forces? The routine has become disturbingly familiar. Initial shock followed by loud protest. Intense coverage and anger that can boil over for weeks, for years. A few days ago, in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, in the American Deep South, a man called Alton Sterling was shot and killed by police. The video footage that emerged was graphic and disturbing.
I saw him on the ground, I still didn't believe it. Because I kept asking, is that my son? Is he dead? And he said, we can't talk to him. So I thought he was strapped down on the ground and had him handcuffed. I didn't know he was dead.
Overnight, protesters had gathered.
Right now!
And at this point, like you, I am demanding answers. Like you, all my prayers are with this community and especially with the family and loved ones of Mr. Sterling.
But these scenes are nothing new. They've sadly become almost routine. What happened in Baton Rouge was replicated in Minnesota. Philando Castile was shot while in his car with his girlfriend. He later died from his wounds. In a gruesome turn of events, she filmed the aftermath and streamed the video.
I will, sir. No worries.
Live on social media.
He just shot his arm off.
When incidents like this occur, there's a big chunk of our fellow citizenry that feels as if, because of the color of their skin, they are not being treated the same.
There is distrust of the police by the black community in some areas.
We demand justice from the top. No peace, no justice, no peace.
Last year in Charleston, South Carolina, Walter Scott was shot 8 times and killed while running away. The policeman Michael Slager claims Scott had tried to grab his gun and taser, but a video taken by a bystander proved otherwise. Slager is due to face a murder trial later this year. But what if there hadn't been a video? Often the real story is out there before the authorities can react. Channeled by the social media campaign Black Lives Matter. But the incidents of shooting by police seem to come fast and furious. Efforts to rebuild trust can amount to nothing when a new shooting occurs and a new video goes viral. In a country awash with guns, this is a problem that doesn't seem to be going away. Francis Collins, The Newsmakers.
Well, joining me now to discuss the latest developments is James Peterson. He's the Director of Africana Studies at Lehigh University, who joins me from Philadelphia. In New York is Brittney Cooper, a professor in African Studies at Rutgers University. And in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, is Ron Martinelli, a criminologist and author of The Truth Behind the Black Lives Matter movement. Thanks all of you for joining us. Brittney Cooper, let me start with you. Give me your immediate reaction to what's just happened in Dallas.
Certainly, we should decry this act of random violence against police officers. No person deserves to be executed as they go about their daily lives. I think I have moral clarity about that. The president of the U.S. has moral clarity about that. Members of the Black Lives Matter movement have moral clarity about that. And our problem is that law enforcement and members of U.S. politics don't seem to have the same moral clarity about the need to protect Black lives and the need to stand up and say unequivocally that Black people don't deserve to be executed as we go about our daily lives as well.
Ron Martinelli, do you believe that the Black Lives Matter movement has moral clarity on this? I
absolutely do not believe that. I've been researching them for 2 years. They are a violent Marxist revolutionary movement that seeks to defund and disengage law enforcement from the American community. They spew false narratives. We've seen this time and time again, and the statistics of black men being shot and killed by police in the United States, statistically, your chances are better than getting hit by lightning than killed by a police officer. It's been proven time and time again.
James Peterson, the Dallas police chief, David Brown, just said not too long ago that the suspect said he was upset about recent killings, about the Black Lives Matter movement, and he wanted to kill white people, especially white officers. What does that tell you, James?
Well, it tells me that we still need to get a little bit more information out of Dallas around this issue. Chief Brown, I think, did a great job in the press conference, except for the fact that he let us know about this suspect's desire to kill white police officers, but I'm a little bit confused about his comments around whether or not the suspect was upset about the Black Lives Matter movement or upset with Black Lives Matter. That seems to be unclear. So it seems a little bit, the information is prone to being misinformation without proper context and a little bit more. I'm not sure where Mr. Martinelli's statistics are coming from, but I don't want to be struck by lightning, and I also don't want to be executed by law enforcement in a traffic stop. The reality is that now is the time for us to have a very measured tone, to be very, very careful and cautious about what we say in the media, because media is a part of this equation as well. Obviously, we learn about a lot of these things through social media, and our commentary and what we say and what we think about here should not be designed to inflame the conflict and the situations that are on the table right now. We've got to be much more measured and much more thoughtful about how we're talking about and how we're thinking about what are going to be the next steps out of this conundrum. You have violence on both sides now, and the reality is that we've got to work to heal the communities and heal the relationship between law enforcement and the communities that they're charged with serving and protecting. Right.
Ron, there's been, just rewinding a little bit, there's been these two viral videos and the killings of Alton Sterling in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and then Philando Castile in St. Paul, Minnesota. Now, there's an argument that in previous times, we would just have to take the cops at their word that they were probably attacked, that these guys reached for their guns. These videos don't absolutely, unequivocally show that the cops were fully to blame, but they do suggest a very macabre situation. From what we see, it does seem as if those men did not deserve to die. Do you at least accept that in this digital age, we're starting to get a clearer idea that some pathological stuff is happening where people should not have rounds of bullets pumped into them for very little reason?
Well, first of all, let me just set the record straight with everybody here. I've done more civil rights work than anybody that's on your television show today. I work all sides. My very first case was the Rodney King case, and I was assisting the federal prosecutors. I am a forensic expert. I am not a speculator. I have looked at the video in the Sterling case, and there is no forensic evidence that supports the fact that he was not resisting. In either video, you cannot see his right hand. We know he was armed. We know he had a pocket pistol in his right arm, in his right pocket. If he was not resisting, why did it take 2 police officers to hold him down? And why was the police officer yelling, "He's got a gun, he's going for a gun"?
So you're willing to give them the benefit of the doubt?
Well, no, you have to look at it factually and forensically. You can't have an emotional response here. We're dealing with forensic evidence, not with emotional speculation. I work all sides. I've been very much involved in the prosecution of police officers, but the cases that I've reviewed, especially the ones in my book, Michael Brown, Freddie Gray, these cases, the police have been acquitted. They were found, even by the Department of Justice, to have done nothing wrong. Yet the Black Lives Matter movement keeps moving these false narratives forward and inflaming the public.
Hold on, Ron. 3 of the 6 cops were acquitted in the Freddie Gray situation. We still don't know. We'll have to hear from Baltimore. But I want to bring in Brittney Cooper. Brittney?
Yeah, this narrative of white objectivity is completely absurd and ludicrous. This is the way that white supremacy frames the facts, right? So that it always frames the facts to support this kind of violent killing and slaughter of Black people and Black lives. The other thing to say about this is that emotion is absolutely warranted in this moment. Black people have every right to be enraged when Philando Castile, a Black man who had a concealed to carry permit, is executed on side of the road as he's coming from getting his haircut for his birthday, which would have been today. So we have every right to be angry about this, and this does not shift our moral clarity. My problem when I talk to folks who claim to be experts about this is that there is no objectivity in anything that Ron Martinelli is saying right now. This is all about supporting a narrative of white dominance and total white violation of Black people and Black lives, and we cannot stand for it anymore. The Black Lives Matter movement has never suggested that white cops ought to be executed as they go about their daily lives. We have asked for, and what we are advocating for, is responsible policing, community responsive policing, and end to racist policing, and end to the militarization of police forces.
Brittney, let me pose something to you, Brittney. Just, let me come in there. Let me pose something to you. Isn't it depressing that Dallas is the city where the cops seem to have got this right? There was a piece from the Washington Post in 2015. The headline was, "What Dallas's historically low murder rate can teach us about policing," and it spoke about the fact that they had a community-oriented approach to policing, openness and transparency about excessive force, the rejection of law enforcement as a revenue generator, the militarization of police, etc. So isn't that depressing that here they're getting it right, yet these cops were executed, Brittney?
It is absolutely depressing. I'm very heartened to hear about the kind of model of policing that they're pursuing in Dallas. But I think it's also important to say that this lone gunman, as they're reporting right now, said specifically that he didn't have any affiliation to Black Lives Matter as a network, right? That he was not deputized by Black Lives Matter to commit these murders. Even the police chief in Dallas is saying that. So we cannot associate Black Lives Matter's righteous and real and factual critique of police killings around the country as having anything to do with this lone gunman going off half-cocked and killing these police officers. And so you're absolutely right that Dallas is pursuing a model of policing that is of the type that we would like to see moving forward. We need even more reform than what we have in Dallas. We need to talk to citizens on the ground about whether they feel as positive about this police reform, the police reform measures that are happening there. But certainly I think it's a step in the right direction. And we are complicated people, and we can hold all these things in tension. We can say that we reject the killings of Alton Sterling and Philando Castile and Michael Brown and Trayvon Martin and Tamir Rice, and also say that we do not support the execution of police officers as they go about their daily lives.
Okay, strongly put. Now, Now, James Peterson, I understand we are going to lose you in just a couple of moments' time. So I've got one final question for you, James. Talking about patterns, Brittney mentioned a list of names of people who were killed. So you have Mike Brown, Tamir Rice, Alton Sterling, and so on. And activists string these together and create patterns and say there's a pattern of police killings. I wonder, should we be doing the same when it comes to cops who were killed? When we see that in December 2014, you had those NYPD cops who were ambushed and executed. The killer committed suicide, but on his Instagram post, he said he was doing it as revenge for the killing of Eric Garner. And then you had 2 cops who were shot in Ferguson in March 2015. Is that a pattern that we should be looking at as well, James?
As long as we do so within the context of the data that we know that law enforcement officers, it's been decreasing percentages of law enforcement officers losing their lives in the line of duty from gunshots. But here's the thing. We have to be very, very complicated and complex about this complicated situation. There will always be bad actors in our society who will take advantage of certain kinds of conflicts. It's just like any kind of extremist or any kind of militia movement that's well publicized, or any kind of social movement that's well publicized. There will be bad actors who will try to take advantage of that just to sort of for their own individual reasons. But when we look at the data on our criminal justice system, when we look at the data on law enforcement, we know that black men are 2.5 times more likely to be executed or killed or murdered in some instances in terms of police stops. We know that black folks are pulled over more, they're arrested more, they're sentenced more. We know how stop and frisk works. We have a lot of data that suggests to us very, very strongly that there is institutional bias in our criminal justice system, and sometimes law enforcement officers represent that institutional bias. We've got to address those issues, because the reality is we can mourn the loss of these 5 Dallas police officers, and we absolutely should, but we should not disengage that from what the root causes and what the root problems are. And we have problems with policing in this nation that have to do with institutional biases. We have to root those things out, address them directly. That's long, hard, sustained work that has to be sustained over long periods of time. And again, the time for the sort of high rhetoric and angry rhetoric is not right now. Right now, we have to be measured and thoughtful about how we actually move forward from this particular situation, because it does seem as if our nation is on edge. I know that the black community is on edge and been on edge. There are black folks who are driving today who have images of Castile and Sterling in their mind. There are law enforcement officers who have to do their work today who have images of people scrambling around Dallas because of some sniper trying to assassinate law enforcement. So in that particular context, that powder keg, we have to work very, very diligently, especially in the media, to call for calm and to be thoughtful and respectful of all the loss that we've experienced over the course of the last week, and to think very, very critically about what is the way forward in terms of repairing the relationship between law enforcement and the communities with which they're served to serve and protect.
Okay, James, I know you've got to run, so thank you very much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the program. Brittney and Ron Martinelli, stay where you are. I'm going to come back to you in just a moment. But James spoke about the need to be measured, the need to have good leadership and be thoughtful about all of this. President Barack Obama spoke not too long ago in Warsaw in response to what was happening in Dallas. Let's have a little listen as to what he had to say.
We will learn more, undoubtedly, about their twisted motivations. But let's be clear, there's no possible justification for these kinds of attacks or any violence against law enforcement. Even as yesterday I spoke about our need to be concerned as all Americans about racial disparities in our criminal justice system, I also said yesterday that our police have an extraordinarily difficult job, and the vast majority of them do their job in outstanding fashion. I also indicated the degree to which we need to be supportive of those officers who do their job each and every day, protecting us and protecting our communities. Today is a wrenching reminder of the sacrifices that they make for us.
Well, that was the American president, Barack Obama, speaking in Warsaw. Ron, does that sound measured and strong leadership to you?
Well, no, I have to really disagree with that comment. The president has been in the forefront of both creating dissension between the black community and law enforcement. He's been wrong on every single occasion. Trayvon Martin, he was wrong. He was wrong on the Michael Brown case. He's been wrong on the Freddie Gray case. I actually worked on the Tamir Rice case. He was wrong about that case. The professor is wrong about the black statistics. I don't even want to approach the racial issue because the statistics clearly show, and anybody can look them up with the United States Department of Justice, that black male suspects kill police officers at a rate of approximately 9 times of what white police officers kill black suspects. Also, the professor is wrong about the rate of gun violence and officers being shot by people. There is a 300% increase this year alone on officers being shot by suspects. We need to have clear understandings of what our problems are in this nation. Police officers make mistakes. I absolutely do not deny that. I have written extensively about it and investigated it. But for these people to provide your viewers with a skewed narrative is irresponsible. For the lady to say that Black Lives Matter movement has not promulgated police violence. We have videos in the United States of them marching down the street with Black Lives Matter signs saying, kill police, fry them like bacon. I mean, there's a truth that we need to be looking at, not these false narratives.
Okay, let's get a response from Brittney. Brittney, a lot of charges in a few sentences from Ron. Where are you going to start, Brittney?
First, let's start with Brittney is also a professor too. Let's begin there and just have some mutual respect. But also, let's be clear
too, Brittney.
That Black Lives Matter is committed to making the world safer for Black people because we live in a world that is unsafe for Black people. And very often law enforcement officers police us with antagonism, with lots of implicit bias and assumptions. And far too often, Black folks end up dead in these encounters. And when you're a Black person and that is your reality, then we have to stand up for ourselves and say that our lives matter and that we're not going to put up with this. I think that Ron Martinelli is committed to a narrative that ultimately supports white supremacy. He is committed to a narrative of facts that only support a white supremacist sort of narrative. We know specifically that the killings of law enforcement officers are down more than 50% from the rates that they were in the 1970s. 2013 was a year of a historically low number. And so we have seen a rise in a couple of police officers in the last 2 years. But the reason that the jump seems so significant is because when you compare the rate that officers are killed now to the rates they were killed 40 years ago, that has changed massively and drastically, and that's what the facts say. So look, my concern is about the protection of Black lives. That is what my concern has to be because I have a Black life. And in fact, in Dallas, many of my family members live there. Many young men in my family that I love live in Dallas. Just last summer, right on the suburbs of Dallas, we saw a police officer attack a 15-year-old girl at a pool party in McKinney, Texas, which is a suburb of Dallas. So this idea that policing in this area of the country is so much nicer for Black people is a little bit skewed by the facts that we actually have. So I think Mr. Martinelli's narrative is incendiary. I think it's factually inaccurate. I think it's deeply rooted in white rage. It's incredibly emotional. And so one of the ways white supremacy works is by telling us that white rage is logical and that conclusions which support white lives and the killing of Black people is logical. And so we're not supposed to see the emotion that is animating his deeply skewed conclusions. But I want to be clear that I am angry today, but I'm also very clear that all lives matter, but that in this country, the problem we have is in making sure and protecting Black lives. That is the thing that needs to change. I do not think the pathway to protecting Black lives is by executing police officers. I don't think that anyone in our movement thinks that. I'm tired of folks that hold Mr. Martinelli's position, pointing to one protest in which protesters talked about frying the police. That was one protest. There have been over 1,200 Black Lives Matter protests since 2014. It is clearly the outlier. That is not our our overarching message. Our overarching message is Black Lives Matter. We deserve to be protected. We are law-abiding citizens. And the police, if they make, as he said, mistakes, whatever they're doing, when they take our lives, they should be held to the highest standard because they have the state-sanctioned use of lethal force. And when they misuse it and our lives are a casualty, we deserve for them to be held accountable. But beyond that, we want them to stop killing us.
Okay, I'll let that be the final word because we have run out of time. Brittney Cooper and Ron Martinelli, I must thank both of you for joining us, and earlier James Peterson as well. Thanks so much. Great pleasure. Hope to have you on the program again. On this special edition of the Newsmakers, we looked at the latest violence in the U.S. and asked what could be done to stop it. Dallas has a low murder rate, in part due to the police department's work in community outreach and transparency around its use of lethal force. But that didn't stop them from being targeted. There's a feeling of an increasing divide between the police and public across America. And in the age of the internet, many more of these deaths at police hands are being seen than ever before. The anger may be understandable, the violence less so. You've been watching this edition of the Newsmakers with me, Imran Garda. As always, thank you for watching. Bye-bye.